And the biggest reason why our voices were silenced for the last 3 years is you, the media. Okay? The media has undertaken to be doing only one narrative, the narrative that you were told by the World Health Organization and other organizations like the World Economic Forum. And all of the doctors, and I'm a doctor, and all of the other doctors and thousands of scientists read the Great Barrington Declarations. All of those scientists were prohibited from being interviewed by mainstream media. Mainstream media is the reason why COVID got out of hand.
Bingo.
Amen.
Because
Truth.
mainstream media did not do their work.
Truth.
A democracy relies upon the media to be the intermediary between what's good for the public and what the government is saying. You are not doing your homework. You're not doing the job that reporters are supposed to do. You're supposed to do your due diligence, find out what both sides of the stories are,
Amen.
and give us equal time.
I agree.
Our voices were silenced, and we had to get out in public, and we are being punished for our side of the story, and that is wrong, okay? And we blame the media. The media did not stand for the people of the communities, okay? It is your job to do so. Start doing your job.
However,
You failed.
however, we must say thank
Dr.
you.
Jerry.
Thank you very much for being here today and the days preceding this as well, because we do need mainstream media sharing some of our story. We're just hoping that you include some of the facts that have affected our lives personally through this entire thing. I'm Sharon, one of the Manitoba Five. And Patrick, do you have anything to add about what occurred today?
Oh, it's been a whirlwind for the past 2 years or so, and I was saddled with $34,000 in fines today. I've taken the lead charge in that. Some of the others got $18,000, $19,000, $14,000. I guess I was singled out because I continued to protest after my bail release. Although I didn't breach my bail conditions, they felt that I wasn't deterred. However, there was a win here in court today.
Yes, there was.
A huge win that maybe not everybody caught. The reason I started this, as I testified yesterday, was I stand up for the little guy. And that's everybody here. That's everybody of the media, people behind me, people in the building, everywhere. I stood up for someone who maybe didn't know what to say or didn't have a voice. Every single one of our first tickets received a reprimand.
Woo! Isn't that wonderful?
Woo!
And the reason for the reprimand given by the justice was that everybody does have the right to protest. Everybody does have the right to peaceful assembly. The purpose of ticketing is a deterrence. So if anybody has received tickets for
COVID.
breaking the public health orders and gathering in a public gathering more than King Rusin declared, you do seek that reprimand because you do get that one shot. And we have set a precedent allowing people, even in a so-called public health emergency, to voice their disapproval at least just once. So you do not have to be afraid to speak up for fear of a ticket, because the justice just gave everyone here the opportunity to do so, even in a public health emergency or lockdowns, with that reprimand. And we will be ordering the transcripts of her decision, and we'll be distributing that to everyone.
Yes.
So if anybody has received a ticket, we will help you seek that reprimand.
The first ticket should be a
The first
reprimand.
ticket, and this isn't just Manitoba. This could have implications across Canada, where the justice has agreed that we did have that right to voice our displeasure. But once that ticket came, that deterrent should have been heeded. We didn't heed that deterrent,
Nope.
but others may have. So if you're out there and you've received a ticket, please lean on us to help you seek that reprimand, because I don't want anybody to pay any fines
That's right.
to this government.
Especially for freedom of
Thank
speech.
you.
Todd, you want to say something?
Yeah.
Real media.
I think
The real media, Winnipeg alternative media.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to report on all this. It's been kind of interesting to be caught in between kind of activism and my own beliefs and the actual belief in what Jerry was kind of saying, the importance and the role of media and how important citizen journalism has really become. Having been a part of watching all of this grow and watching its effect on community and watching the community actually grow far more to support something like what we've been doing over the past year and a half, 2 years, more so than we've received any kind of like real sort of flack. Just the tickets and actually the kinds of comments that we would get usually from the media was actually kind of the most negative stuff that we really endured. I would say the community surrounding us, if you see the fine people here and that packed the courtroom 2 days this week, continues to grow. That's really amazing. I want to point out that I think it's really incredible that so many of the things that we said going back a year and a half ago, like what would become the harm to children, on most of your guys' television or radio stations right now is littered with commercials of people talking about how they need to start new programs, they need fundraising, they need to organize to assist in all the harm that was done to children in these past 2 years.
Right.
You can't turn on a radio station or a television station or open up a publication anymore without hearing and seeing that conversation right there. Without apology, but right there. That is what we warned about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I left a job in childcare because of seeing that happen right in front of me. It's amazing to go see it now, a common talking point. Oh, the children have been so hurt these last two years. Maybe we should have done this better. That's what we got in trouble for saying. And we're still getting in trouble for saying it, even though at the very same time a judge hands us down a fine of upwards of $30,000. She can go home today, turn on the television station, and see commercials talking about exactly what she just fined us for saying.
Exactly. Wow.
So what next step is obviously appeal.
Appeal.
Absolutely,
This
appeal.
will
Somebody
be
want to
appeal.
talk about the strategy here? Does it go to court of appeal right now?
Well,
I think the strategy that would be a better question for our lawyers. This is an unprecedented case in Manitoba, so we have the 30 days to notify the courts of our appeal, and that's what we intend to do.
Absolutely.
The appeal is not to the Court of Appeal; it's to the
Queen's
Bench. We're the lowest court, the provincial court, so we've got our appeal goes to the Queen's Bench. Should we fail at that point, we then are allowed to appeal to the Court of Appeal. Now, there's already a case to the Court of Appeal that will be heard probably in November or
December 13th.
And it's basically on the same idea that we were denied our constitutional arguments, and that's why we chose to just take the sentencing, and then we'll just move on to the appeal. But our appeal is going to be a retrial to allow us to express ourselves and to make our case as to why the Constitution should have been, and probably was, if it's properly discussed, should have been protecting us to be able to speak out like this.
And given the ruling in the Gateway Bible Church case,
That's what we're waiting for.
how do you fight that and have that overturned in essence by having an appeal of your case?
Well, their appeal is scheduled for December 13th.
Ours would be probably a year from now. So we're going to be relying on whatever happens at that level. If at that level they get told that they fail, if they go to the Supreme Court of Canada, that's their next level. And so we are going to be taking advice from what goes on at those levels. Our next level is to the Court of Queen's Bench. Now, the head of the Court of Queen's Bench, that's Justice Joyal, he's the one that forbid the church arguments to go into the having any arguments regarding to the Constitution. So the Constitution does not protect us at this point. That's where the argument of the church is going to go to the Court of Appeal. If they say yes, the constitutional challenge should have been allowed to be heard. Okay. At that point, that'll affect down to us, and we may not even have to go to our appeal. It may immediately be given us a retrial Okay, that kind of thing. So we're going to see what happens in November and December this year.
And of course,
Our appeal will never be heard for another year.
Probably not.
In the meantime, do you pay fines?
No, you don't.
Well, we've all been
7
given
years.
7 years.
7 years.
So in reality, we don't have to address those until year
7 trumpets. Isn't this a biblical number? 7?
Wow. Wow.
And once we appeal, once we file the appeal, we don't have to worry about paying the fines if the appeal is accepted. If our application is accepted to appeal, that puts a stay kind of thing temporarily until the higher court will decide. If we fail at that point, then of course the fines continue and maybe some new fines added to just a waste of time in the court like that.
And we, it's a shame that we couldn't come through with our constitutional arguments, as we had quite different arguments than the Gateway challenge that the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms was doing, or helping out Manitobans. And I'd like to, on behalf of the other 4, Tobias is gone, but give a thanks to the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms
Absolutely, yes.
for helping out with some legal fees, and thank my lawyer, Mr. Kyle Morgan, for stepping up to the plate.
And Alex Steigerwald was incredible as well. too.
Alex was
He's
very
been-
good.
yeah,
He stood up
he's
for
been
us
amazing.
very well,
Yeah, and we'll continue to.
and will continue. Yeah.
And so for strategy, we would ask them on how that goes. Like I said, it's unprecedented. It's even unprecedented for the lawyers
Yeah.
in this sort of case, because everything we did, and I think this is important to note, everything we did over the last 2 years is something that we took for granted our whole lives. Shaking hands
And hugging on every ticket.
and
Shaking
getting
hands
together with
seen.
friends, maybe for a
Shaking
beer and a
hands and
pizza,
hugging.
was illegal. Our constitutional arguments would have had expert reports from Dr. Denis Rancourt from Quebec. We weren't able to enter his evidence because we didn't get the constitutional challenge.
That's right.
His reports show that the lockdowns caused far more harm than they did good, and he's totaled up the seniors, the effect on the seniors in homes, and how many people were affected by the lockdowns. Like I alluded to of my wife's great grandmother who died of isolation. You could dispute that she died of isolation. However, you can't dispute that she died in isolation.
Correct.
We threw away the people in our society who did everything for us to build these buildings, to put us here on this earth, and we just locked them away, and nobody fought for the elderly. We did. And why did we forget them? Why did we allow the government to just forget our senior citizens? Without your grandparents, you wouldn't be here. And to see the harms that happened to them, and if any one of you have to go through that and not be able to visit a loved one in the hospital or a care home, you might feel that. And when that does happen, you can come to us and we will help you
We will.
and give you support and give you the tools that we've learned and who to talk to in the government to try to get in to visit your grandma. But that shouldn't even be an issue.
Exactly.
I don't want anybody to die alone.
No, that's the worst.
And that's what got me going.
Speaking about death, it is now known, and the insurance corporations in the United States have just published a 40% rise in claims for deaths, and that's since the vaccine. So I'm warning people, as a natural healing physician, vaccines do not prevent COVID. They do not prevent the transmission of COVID. But they do, because it's a new technology, it's experimental. And for you to get an experimental shot, you must be given full and informed consent. And they have never been able to do that because it's still not, the final determinations are still not out. It is an experimental shot. Ever since the vaccine got released, we've seen a 40% rise in death. And that's the insurance companies that are telling you that. And if the insurance companies are noting that, that's a big bell to ring right now. Do not get vaccinated. If you've already been vaccinated, do not take the booster shots. The more you get, the greater the chances of you having a very severe and maybe even terminal side effect of it, effect from it. Okay? Don't get vaccinated. That is the wrong thing to be doing, especially with a non-vaccine thing like the experimental vaccine that they're pushing on people. And our children, go.
The
We
judge
have
this morning-
8-year-olds that are dead. We have 10-year-olds with cardiac arrest.
It's true.
The
It's
judge
sick.
this morning
What's the
talked
question?
about not seeing signs of remorse. Do you have any regrets all this time later?
Absolutely not.
Not.
And I
Absolutely
would
not.
if you gotta be careful what I
have an
say
answer
here,
for that.
but I'm never one to shy away from the truth and what my real feelings are.
I have a regret.
My only regret is that I didn't go harder,
Yeah, agreed.
and I wasn't louder.
Yeah.
Well, like I just mentioned as well too, we saw far more positive reinforcement and feedback than anything
That's right.
negative by a million miles.
We do have the public.
Far more.
I think we have the public. It's shifting. You know, we have the public support. In Quebec, they asked people who are double vaccinated, "Are you going to get a third shot?" 69% of people said no. In March 2020, April, May of 2020, 75% of the population wanted more lockdowns. And now we have 70% of the population saying they don't want to take another vaccine. These are statistics. These are polls that people rely on. The public
Opinion is
shifting.
moving, is shifting.
and public opinion is the most important opinion out there.
Yeah.
So I think, like I said yesterday, when we look back in history, 1 year from now, 10 years from now, 40 years from now, they're going to know that we were all right.
So that's why we have no remorse, because what we were saying, our voice was censored, okay? And if anybody should have remorse to have censored in a democracy an opinion that was different than the government's opinion,
Unacceptable
But that was
views,
worldwide.
according to Trudeau.
We were
Exactly.
labeled as
Fringe
misogynistic, racist, because we had a different opinion.
Yet there was rallies happening in every country in the world practically.
Yes.
yeah.
And there were our elected officials were participating in illegal gatherings. There was many gatherings that happened over the last 2 years that Wab Canoe was at, or Brian Bowman was at, or Nahani Fontaine was at. Even some of the conservative members of this government were at illegal gatherings.
Did they get tickets?
But they went on the floor of the ledge and demonized us.
One of the pillars of totalitarianism is the criminalization of dissent. We have been criminally charged for dissent. Our voice was deemed to be not acceptable.
According to Justin Trudeau.
And if you look at some of the professors of society that have exposed Karl Marx for what he was, and China's Communist Party, and all of the other socialistic things, that's a failed system, time and time and time again. And Canada is slowly moving into that totalitarianism model of governance. We are losing our rights to have a democracy. And if we don't stand up, and the media is so important for that, let's get the media out of the pockets of the government.
Yes.
CBC, you are given $1 billion a year or more. CTV, not as much. Okay. You have got to be independent so that you could be that fifth pillar in society to protect us from the government overreach. And that's what we've been living for 3 years, government overreach. So we will not be saddened, as the judge said, that we had no remorse. We don't have the remorse standing up for the people.
No, never.
Somebody's got to stand up for the people.
Yes.
It's supposed to be the media. You guys need to really step it up a bit.
Sharon, what was your one regret you said?
What was my one regret? My one regret would have been not being able to reach more people with love and truth, and that's my one regret. We, like Patrick had said, our work isn't finished yet because we still see trauma everywhere, We see people wearing masks. We see children still being muzzled. We see, one of our biggest fans, a fine mess for the Manitoba 5. We've got the Grim Reaper that shows up all the time. The trauma that one individual must have to be standing here to be throwing daggers literally at people, or just truly we're caring. So my one regret is I wish I would have found more ways, not just the one way we chose, more ways than sending out educational flyers, which me and an anonymous crew of people reached 10,000 homes reaching with educational flyers. Maybe that's something I should have stuck to instead of getting fines for everything I did. But I still could have done more. So my regret is I wish I could have found more ways than just being a voice in front of so many wonderful people I now call family.
Amen.
Thank you all.
And we'll thank Justice Victoria Corning. I know she had a tough job ahead of her,
Yes, good.
and she balanced, and I think we appealed to her heart.
Yeah.
And I think she did what she could do.
Well